Hey everybody, this is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous good-looking friends. Jack Royston from Newsweek is sure working hard for that money. Before we get into it, please stick with me through till the end because I do drop a couple bombshells that you don't want to miss. Okay, so getting back to Jack Royston. So far, 4 articles have been pushed out this morning by Newsweek, 3 of them coming from Jack Royston, and 1 coming from the other correspondent or freelancer that is writing in support of the Harkles, or sort of support of the Harkles. But the important thing to understand is the deflection that the Sussex camp is making in order to suppress and make sure that the article that was done about Meghan being a psychopath gets pushed down and no longer taking up headlines, in which clearly that's exactly what's happening. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go through these to show you the propaganda and push to control the brand and cover up Meghan's psychotic behavior and lies. Our little Megsy just can't help herself and keeps digging herself into a hole so deep that at some point she's going to end up reaching China. Now, poor Jack has been stupid enough to now be the main focal point of defending the Harkles and writing countless amounts of articles supporting and backing the Duchess. I'm guessing that Scobie was left off the hook now because anything that Scobie says, there's a tremendous amount of backlash. So if you notice, he's not really talking very much. And no longer any articles coming from BuzzFeed because Smelly Hall had lost her job. So Jack right now is called into the spotlight because he seems to be the only one writing these propaganda pieces. I don't know why, but every time I see this guy's face, he reminds me of those little animals called ferrets. For those that don't know, ferrets fall into the weasel family, and I think it's fitting for him. So moving forward, I'm going to call this guy Ferret. It is my opinion that this ferret is such a little weasel and scamp. Let's talk about the first article, how Meghan Markle paparazzi pictures came about. No one calls me. Okay, Meghan. Sure. Wink, wink. It is so sad and pathetic that this woman feels like she has to clap back at every single piece of criticism. So she's been called out and she knows it, that every time she goes out on these pap walks, she calls backwards. So now all of a sudden, this other person who we'll get into in a second had taken the photos. And of course, people called her out for saying that this was a staged paparazzi situation in which she used this woman who has ties to publicity as well as celebrities in her own nefarious dealings and cut a deal to get these photos out. So this ferret writes, a paparazzi photographer who has snapped Meghan Markle 4 times in 2 years says the Duchess of Sussex has never tipped her off.
Sure, Jan.
Meghan is frequently accused of staging paparazzi shots by social media critics and sometimes in mainstream media publications. He writes, however, Jill Ishkananian, whose most recent pictures were at a Montecito flower market on Friday, July 14th, told Newsweek she has never been tipped off by Meghan. Perhaps there is some element of truth in that because Meghan is a lazy bitch and she always has this woman, Ashley, who always has to walk 10 steps behind her, but is the head of PR and the Sussex spokesperson who pushes out Meghan's lies. Is there a possibility that she called this woman? 100%. This is how Meghan Markle operates. She always keeps her hands clean, but the source always leads back to her. So apparently this woman, Jill, has the most amazing luck in the world that got to photograph the Duchess, not once, not twice, but 4 times. What? And Meghan pursued no legal action? And out of all the people in Montecito, coincidentally, the person taking this photo happens to be in the business of management and PR? Right, Meghan. You really think people are that stupid to believe that you had nothing to do with this and calling Jack Royston to write this article? Get out of here. Come on. Stop insulting our intelligence. We're not stupid. This woman, Jill, is so stupid for talking to Newsweek because now she just exposed herself. And I guarantee Meghan's never going to call on her again because she pays attention to everything that people are saying online. So, further down in this article, the ferret writes, far from setting up pictures with Meghan's cooperation, she said she has at points had to go to great lengths to convince picture editors that her images are actually of the Duchess. In December 2021, she got pictures of Meghan enjoying a day out wearing a mask, sunglasses, and a hat pulled down over her face. So little of Meghan was showing that she had to find an old picture of the Duchess in the same boots to prove it was really her. Oh, you mean these photos? Yeah, her name's stamped at the bottom of it, where it was featured in the Daily Mail. You know where else Jill's name is featured? In the very same article that was published by the Daily Mail. She actually wrote this article. The little ferret at Newsweek got played because now he looks like even a bigger fool for putting out more propaganda that's complete lies. Now, I suspect that the little ferret had wrote this article to play both sides of the fence when it comes to writing stories about Meghan Markle, because he obviously knows that it gets clicks and he's making a lot of money off of doing it. Now, if you notice, these bitches had suppressed the article that was done about Samantha. Clearly at the top, that is continuing to stay at the top, is Meghan Markle has press scared over paparazzi pictures. She won. Obviously, this is clearly crafted to show that, one, yeah, Jack Royston is not biased should he get called to testify, which I hope he does, should Samantha's case move forward, because he was part of the misinformation, disinformation spread of Samantha Markle in defaming her. Second, this is Jack's way of saying, look, Meghan, I'm still on your team. Please don't put me in the naughty box with Scobie. I'm still loyal to you. Before we delve into the actual important article out of all four of those articles, is calling out the BS on this article that was written by Jack Royston, the same thing he wrote about in the prior article about this woman, Jill, and how Meghan didn't call her to take these photos. Crazy enough is that this very same article is just a copy of the last article, which, as you can see, it's now duplicated. The only thing that wasn't included in the first article that he wrote about Jill and this woman who took Meghan's photo on 4 different occasions is a quote from Jill by saying, I would say everyone's scared of her, she told Newsweek. They're all scared of her. She won. The publications are just scared of her. They're more timid. She's trouble with a capital T. When you sell a picture of her, you get lawyers calling you, and they ask you all sorts of questions. They ask you, did she ask you not to take her picture? And she continues in quotes, I got forms from the Mail, the Sun, everybody. They're all crazy. Then they ask you, why were you there? No one called me. Montecito is a small place. If you're around, it's not that hard. Then Jill said, she has not received complaints from Meghan's team directly, having photographed Meghan 4 times since 2021. Well, I wonder why. You see, Meghan knew she was being photographed and said nothing. So if nobody called this woman Jill, and Jill's writing articles for the Mail, the Sun, and everybody and their mother, why didn't Meghan's lawyers call her as well? She wants people to believe that she had no involvement with it? Meghan didn't win dick, okay? You see how they're twisting the narrative now? Because there are nobody taking photos of Meghan, they're going to spin it off as saying that they are scared. They don't want to get sued. But the reality is that nobody's interested in her. Meghan, unfortunately, can't seem to comprehend this in her small little head. It now appears like this woman, Jill, is representing Meghan from a PR standpoint and is trying to do some kind of damage control because she had been called out. Meghan Markle is a pathological liar, and the people that are doing her bidding for her are beginning to look incredibly foolish. Nobody believes any of this. The left-wing media here in the United States has been losing interest in writing about Meghan. Even the tabloids have begun to stop putting her on the cover for even controversy. They recognize that this woman is a fraud. Jack Royston now seems to be the last man standing for mainstream media in publishing this propaganda. The only article that should be given attention to is the article today where Samantha Markle's lawyers outright exposes Meghan for being the liar that she is, and also his assessment and opinion that Meghan Markle has some kind of severe mental illness because what she has done to both sides of the family is truly something that a sick person would do. So let's spend some time giving the attention that it deserves discussing this article. And what I'm going to ask is I'm going to put the link to this article down in the description. Click on it to give the link so it bumps back up to the top in the SEO, because this is what we need the judge to see if she's reading the news on a daily basis. When you are saturating the media with all these other articles, she's not getting to see this article. Sure, Jack is going to get more clicks for this, but let's not forget that compensation drives behavior. So if he's making money off of articles that are speaking out and telling the truth, and people are clicking on it for that as opposed to this other garbage, you can bet that Jack is going to be writing more stories that do support calling this woman out for being the liar that she is. And it could actually help Jack get out of being scrutinized for being one of the puppets that Meghan uses to push out propaganda that had defamed Samantha Markle. So if he was a smart man, which doesn't look too smart, he's going to go that route because he's going to be financially incentivized to do it. And share this video if you can, because people need to know about what is going on. So now let's begin going through what Samantha's lawyer said. So in this article, the Ferret writes, Samantha Markle's lawyer said Meghan Markle ran a calculated psyop to land a prince, and that she is most probably a sociopath, in comments that are likely to offend the Sussex camp. Peter Tickton, senior partner at the Tickton Law Group, upped the rhetoric as the two half-sisters prepare for a court battle over whether Samantha's libel lawsuit against Meghan can proceed to trial. His comments will likely rile the Sussex team. Meghan has been called a sociopath before by former palace staff, according to biography Courtiers by royal correspondent Valentine Lowe. He's the journalist who broke the 2021 story that Meghan had been accused of bullying by former aides. In quotes, I'm not certain as to her exact diagnoses, Tickton told Newsweek. I don't know for sure whether she is a psychopath, a sociopath, or has a borderline personality disorder with narcissistic tendencies. I just believe she's one of these, most probably a sociopath. I would have to disagree. I think she's a psychopath because of how she treated her family, specifically her father, to a point where he got sick. And if she is behind actually being the one provoking Thomas Markle's heart attack and stroke as a result of setting him up with those paparazzi, Carl Larson, Jeff Rayner, then yeah, this woman clearly a psychopath, because a sociopath at least has some type of empathy, although being remorseful after doing something. But this woman clearly has no empathy for what she has done and the hurt that she has caused to so many people. In addition to that, I don't think she has borderline personality disorder. I think she has more of the extreme, which is the antisocial personality disorder. And those are the people that traditionally end up in jail. Not only do they lie, but they are the most manipulative people around. Quite frankly, are a danger and threat to society, especially if they have money and power, which is what we've been saying all along. Meghan possesses those traits to where she is dangerous here in society, and I think people need to caution when dealing with people like this. And this is just my opinion. I'm not a doctor. I just do a lot of reading on the subject because it's always interesting to observe people and understand how they interact with society and why they do the things that they do. This does help with understanding interpersonal communication effectiveness in order to build and strengthen relationships. Now, I'd like to point out that initially, when I read this article, I was thinking to myself, this is really bold of Samantha's lawyers to go ahead and do this. But let's not forget that it was Meghan who started all of this. Meghan's lawyers equally did something as bold from the very beginning when they responded to the basis of this lawsuit when Samantha slapped it down by saying, "This baseless and absurd lawsuit is just a continuation of a pattern of disturbing behavior. We will give it the minimum attention necessary, which is all it deserves." Talk about an asshole statement. That right there was asshole number one. So let's remember that, because essentially Meghan's lawyers were calling Samantha crazy without actually having to say she was crazy by using disturbing behavior, and a pattern of it indicates that he was alluding to that train of thought. So Jack continues to write and says, if her case is going to proceed to trial, she will need to convince the judge not only that Meghan's account was wrong, but also that it was damaging to her reputation. Ticton said, "We all loved Meghan when she started to date Harry. In time, though, we learned that Meghan was not exactly what we thought she was. To many, the bloom came off the rose with a thud. Here you have a person who should have been on top of the world, and instead she sowed seeds of destruction and harm onto her father, the royal family, and her wheelchair-bound sister." He continued, "It is an unfortunate situation when a person is at odds with her own family. Here you have Meghan at odds with the families on both sides." Spot on. On Meghan and Harry's relationship, he added, "This wasn't love on first date. It was a calculated psyop to land a prince." And my friends, this is what Meghan Markle will be remembered for. It's not going to be the deep curtsy. It's not going to be the bow in Netflix. It's going to be about how Meghan Markle conned the royal family. If Hulu is out there, or Amazon, anybody who works for those streaming giants, this is a story that you want. Netflix had a golden egg with them if they told the truth. And should information about those children come to light, then this could possibly be the con of the century. So continuing with this article, the ferret includes Peter Ticton's quote by saying, "This is a person who participated in a class project and on her father's recommendation wrote a letter to a soap manufacturer, and to this day professes that she had a significant impact because the soap company neutralized its language in the ad." And then Peter Ticton sets the record straight by saying, "No one wrote to her thanking her and attributed the change to her. Yet, she assumed she caused it, and this is her one claim of accomplishment." Oh, that's so delicious. And Meghan can't sue for defamation because that's the truth. Anyhow, Samantha's lawyers continue and says, "The unnecessary lies about all she blames and the harm she committed is the basis of my opinion. I will stick to them. Let's all not forget that in Valentine Lowe's book, Courtiers, Meghan was called a narcissistic sociopath by the people she had abused. It speaks volumes that the people who worked for Meghan Markle now coin themselves as part of this Sussex Survivors Club. The fact that Meghan Markle did not sue Valentine Lowe over this says a lot, and I am sure that this is going to come up in the court case should it move forward, in which we all hope it does. So what do we think about the ferret writing all these articles today? Do you think that he's been put under a microscope by the public, as we have called out his allegiance and loyalty to Meghan Markle? I think so. Normally, Jack will throw out one or two articles here and there to throw the public off, to make it look like he's not so biased. I also think that he recognizes that he could also be put in this court case to where he's going to get called out for lying and publishing information that should have been fact-checked, but he didn't. Let's not forget what he did to Taz. He may go through the motions and try to get both sides of the story, but clearly this is just going through the motions. He printed rubbish that was false, inaccurate, and here is Taz confirming that. Did the ferret at any point follow up with Taz or retract this story? No, he didn't. And now the chickens are coming home to roost, because this is going to come back to haunt him. Now, if he thinks that all the sugary puff pieces and propaganda that he's written for Meghan in the past is going to save him, and she is going to defend him, Well, he needs to look up the definition of the word markled because guess what? He's next on this list. You can bet that. What do you guys think? Was this a smart idea for Samantha's lawyers to speak to Jack of Newsweek? In my personal opinion, I think it was because if Peter Tickton spoke to any other outlet, it certainly would have fell on deaf ears. Like, Peter Tickton could not go to People magazine and ask to be interviewed or to give a comment. We all saw how People magazine didn't allow Thomas Markle to tell his side of the story after they wrote a piece leaking information about that infamous letter. I also think that Jack took the bait to write this article for his own self-interest, one, from a financial perspective, and two, to make it look like he's not really biased. But instead, he went ahead and did this article, but then wrote a few other articles in order to suppress it. This little weasel has put him in a good position because at this point, nobody really wants to write about Meghan Markle anymore. So he could play both sides if he wants to and reap the benefits, since he is practically the only one still writing stuff. Even though Jack wrote a few more articles in efforts to suppress this one article, you can bet that Meghan Markle was not too happy to see that her little ferret ran off and supported the other side. You can bet Meghan is seething in her little Yacito Ranch cottage that she is allegedly staying in. Which leads me to the last thing I want to bring up surrounding Meghan and Harry's deception to the world. How many of you remember that Meghan and Harry had a different director working with them and then ended up quitting because she wanted to film more inside their home and they weren't comfortable with it? Could it be they didn't want her to know that they possibly were staying at the Isidro Ranch Hotel? When I look at this hotel, aside from it looking like Crabtree and Evelyn threw up in it, there's some very distinct features that reminded me of somewhat seeing it before. During the Netflix mockumentary, there was one moment that stuck out like a sore thumb, and that would be the scene where they were singing Happy Birthday to Meg, but it was June, and there was a big fat D on this cake. People were like saying, well, maybe they were talking about Diana and celebrating her birthday. Everything about this scene, including the lighting, was just creepy and bizarre. Now that we're learning that Meghan and Harry have spent quite a bit of time around in that area, I am beginning to suspect that this too was filmed at the Isidro Ranch Hotel. And here's why I think that. For starters, this dingy looking oriental rug and furniture places them in a suite that probably was not yet renovated. Isidro Ranch had been going under renovations around that time. Actually, in 2019, it fully reopened, but they were still doing work in the facility. So as you can see here, Harry and apparently Meghan and somebody else had been sitting in this little space that looked like it was partially finished. So this special event that we see Harry blowing out the candles for his birthday is happening in September 2020. Let me remind you that we were in the midst of a really serious pandemic, and as you can see, this person that's standing there who is waiting on Harry is wearing a mask. But these fools in this scene decide that they're too good to wear any masks without a care in the world that they could be jeopardizing other people's health. And look at this laughing hyena. The time frame for this too could also be a lie. Anyhow, getting back to Harry in this weird scene, when you look at the furniture and you look at the rug, it's very similar to what this hotel has furnished its place with. God awful ugly, but still, this is what it looks like. And then I noticed the chair and the rug. And sure enough, I was able to find the furniture and what possibly looks like that same rug. Now, as you can see, this is the same chair with the same padding as well as the crisscross that sort of curves around to the side of it. I don't know if this is the same room that they were in, but as far as the furniture goes, yes, it definitely belongs to this ranch. Also, in the gift that keeps on giving with Finding Freedom, stupid Meghan gives herself away. I've stated before in a previous video, I don't believe Harry and Meghan were telling us the truth about when they actually moved to LA. As I've stated before, it's my belief, based off of facts that I have shared with everybody, that Meghan and Harry lied about having to flee Canada because of the paparazzi and press intrusion. That, I believe, is a full lie. In Finding Freedom, it says, with the last of their luggage arriving onto the 4-acre Millefeuille estate in Victoria, Canada, where they would be staying for the next 6 weeks. Let's remember that they showed up at the 3rd week of November and they spent Thanksgiving there. 6 weeks would bring them out right after the holidays, which it did say in a news article that they were only there through till the holidays. Then, as you can see here in the next paragraph, though their Canadian home was temporary, keep in mind nothing had unraveled as yet because this book was published in 2020. If this woman had been telling the truth, there wouldn't be so many versions of this story on how they escaped the palace and moved to California. There wouldn't be so many stories on how they met. So to solidify this story on exactly when Meghan and Harry went to LA and when they were there at Tyler Perry's house, realistically, is this little detail. In Finding Freedom, Scobie writes, with the 6-month-old now standing and shuffling along the edges of furniture more than crawling, giving an indication that Archie was beginning to learn to walk. Scobie makes it a point to say that Harry and Meghan tamper-proofed the Canadian home because Archie was beginning to walk. So then the question is, how could Archie take his first steps at Tyler Perry's if he was shuffling around in Canada?
Archie took his very first steps right here.
Yeah.
Right here.
It's not our home, but we're grateful.
But there's a world in which it could be our home.
Of course, because you all are grifters and you probably would have lied if you could have to say that that was your home. And I can't believe that Tyler Perry was in on this. Now keep in mind, they allegedly purchased that house for a god amount of money, and they had to get the paperwork together as well as let the mortgage go through. To close on a house, it takes at least 45 to 90 days. Let's not forget that if they came over to the United States in March, they wouldn't have been able to have closed on a house so quickly. They would have had to have been looking around to find the right property and real estate and then go through getting the loan and all that other stuff. And then on top of it, it was the height of COVID and in lockdown. So who's going to be going around looking at houses during that time? These two are the biggest liars. I feel like they bamboozled the entire world. And that is why the American people need to know about what he put on his visa, because if he's lied about all this stuff, chances are, if he did fill out any kind of application, he lied on that too. Anyhow, that's all I have for you today. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and share it. And don't forget to subscribe because, as always, I will be back with more content. But until then, please be safe and I will talk to you later. Bye!
It was such a fraud.